Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. You're audible.
We are going to start within 2-3 minutes. So let's wait for a few minutes. So let's start with the session. We are going to start with multiple linear regression today. We have two objectives in this session. One is to discuss the concept of multiple linear regression, and then we will see the implementation and the code for multiple linear regression. We will also discuss the concept of polynomial linear regression in this session. So our objective is to complete regression in this session. You all already familiar that we have completed simple linear regression in our previous session. So I am starting from multiple linear regression. First of all, we will discuss the theory behind this concept, its intuition, and then we will implement multiple linear regression. And after covering multiple linear regression, we will start with polynomial regression. And of course, at the end of this session, we will have the quiz. So let us start with this session. I'm also watching live chat on YouTube. So those who have joined on YouTube uh, can submit their questions on the chat box, and I will answer your queries. So let's start with this session. So multiple linear regression, as multiple linear regression is a case of regression where we want to predict a continuous value. So I hope you remember that in case of regression, we have to predict a continuous number. For example, like 3, 5, 3.5, 39, 39.5, any continuous number which you want to predict will be a case of regression. Prediction of temperature, prediction of salary, prediction of profit, prediction of numbers, all these are the cases of regression. In earlier discussion, what we have learned in our previous session on, we have experience and salary. So let's suppose I have experience in terms of years, and then I have their corresponding salary. So we implemented simple linear regression where we predicted the salary on the basis of experience. And for this, we actually predicted it by using simple equation of straight line, that is pi equal to mx plus c. Here y is salary, m is slope, x will be experience, and c is the constant. So we implemented simple linear regression in our previous session, and we predicted the salary on the basis of experience. In simple linear regression, it is important to note that we have only one input variable and one output variable. तो एक ही input variable है और एक ही output variable था. In this particular case, salary and experience will be our input variable, and experience or salary is our output variable, or it means that salary is dependent on experience. So if you have only one input variable, then that case is covered under simple linear regression. But practically, we have multiple input variables. For example, in this case, here I want to predict the profit of the company. Now, the profit of the company is not dependent on one thing. It is dependent on multiple attributes. And here you can see that profit of the company is dependent on the amount which is spent by the company in R&D, the amount it spent on administration expenses, the amount it spent on marketing, and the state or the place from where this company operate. So in this session, we want to predict the profit of the company on the basis of these four input attributes. So when you have multiple input attribute for a single output attribute, then that case will be covered under multiple linear regression. So in case of multiple linear regression, we have multiple input variables. तो मल्टीपल लीनियर रिग्रेशन में हमारे पास मल्टीपल इनपुट वेरिएबल्स है, while in simple linear regression we have only one input variable. While the output is same, output will be a continuous value both in case of simple linear regression and in case of multiple linear regression. So this is the basic difference between simple and multiple. The only difference in the number of input attribute. In simple linear regression, we have only one input attribute, while in multiple linear regression, we have multiple input attributes. So let's move next and try to implement this particular case. So here you can see that we have multiple input attributes and we want to predict that value. Now, let's understand that how mathematically we will be predicting this value. As we have already discussed in our previous session that in case of simple linear regression, the expression is y equal to b0 plus b1 x1. Here, x1 is input attribute and y is output attribute. So this output attribute is dependent on input attribute x1, and this is coefficient b1, and this b0 is constant. But in case of multiple linear regression, we again have y, b0 plus b1 x1, but here you can see that we also have x2 and xn. It means that here we have multiple independent variables. So earlier it is only limited to one input variable x1, but here you can see we have x1, x2, x3 up to xn. and these are multiplied by a coefficient. So it is B naught B1 x1, B2 x2, B3 x3, and Bn xn. So sum of all these plus a constant. So this is the equation for calculating multiple linear regression, and in this case y is equal to constant plus b1 x1. X1 is your first input variable, b2 x2. X2 is your second input variable, b3 x3. X3 will be your third input variable, and so on, and xn will be your last input variable, and it is multiplied by a coefficient bn. So here you can see that this will become your x naught, this will be your x1, this will be x2, x3, and so on. And finally, you have this y profit as y. So in this particular equation, we have to predict profit. So profit will be y, p naught will be constant, and we have b1 x1, b2 x2, b3 x3. So what will be x1 in this case? So here this will be my x1, this will be x2, this will be x3, and finally I have state. Now the data is very simple, but here I have one very important point to discuss, and you can see that here I have state in the form of string. जितने भी column हैं, they are all in numbers, but here I have a state which is not in number, but it is a string. And in this particular case, I have two examples of state. One is Punjab and another is Maharashtra. So this is the first problem which we have to deal. And the problem is that in this case, we have to deal with first problem, that is state. And in this state, you can see that the problem is this, that I am not having any number. Here I am having the value of state as a string, and here I am using Punjab and Maharashtra as two states. So I need to convert these state into numbers, because machine learning, everything should be number. So our data should be in the form of number, and I cannot directly process the strings. So the first task will be how to convert these state values into number. So can anybody tell me, you can unmute yourself, that how I can handle these state values and how I can convert these into numbers?
Assign any random value to any state.
So one solution is to assign a random value, or you can assign a code to these values. So let's suppose you assign a code to Maharashtra and Punjab. So in this case, let's suppose I assign a code 0 to Maharashtra and assign 1 code to Punjab. So this way I assign the code to all the state values, that is maybe 0, 1. And let's suppose I have some more states like this. And in this case, the code will become like this. So I have assigned a unique code to each state value. And let's suppose I have 29 states. So the code will be from 0 to 28. So I will assign a code like this to all the possible values of the states. This particular technique, where I have assigned a unique code to each value of state, is called as label encoding. So this is a new term. You can write on this on your notebook. So this solution is called as label encoding. तो यहाँ पे जितने states की unique values हैं, उनको मैं एक unique code assign कर देता हूँ. जैसे महाराष्ट्र को 0 किया, पंजाब 1, MP is 2, HP is 3, and let's suppose there is one more state, I can assign a code 4, 5, and so on. And if I have 29 states, the code will be from 0 to 28. So this particular approach is called as label encoding. Do you find any problem in using label encoding? इस label encoding की एक बहुत बड़ी problem है. Can anybody tell me what is the problem of this label encoding? You can unmute and tell me कि अगर मैं label encoding use करता हूँ तो इसकी क्या problem आ सकती है?
Sir, it might give more weightage to the state having code as 28 and least weightage to the state having Punjab, like a lower value.
Very good, very good. So you are very correct. that this will give more weight to a state getting the code 28 as compared to a state getting a code 0, because naturally 0 is less than 1 and 1 is less than 2 and 2 is less than 3 and these are less than 28. So the state which get a code 28 will get more weight, or the model will be more biased towards a state having higher value of code as compared to a state which is getting lower value of code. So this is the problem of label encoding. So we have to get rid of this problem. And the solution to, here I have listed the problem that state having the higher value of code will get more biased during building the model. So I have to solve this problem. And to solve this problem, we have another labeling technique or another encoding technique. And for this, we use a coding technique called as one hot encoding. So you can write again this term on your notebook, one hot encoding. So there are two encodings. One is label encoding, jahan pe I am simply assigning the code 0 to 28 or 0 to any number, which is equal to the unique values in that column. But the problem is that the value or the attribute which is getting higher value will get more bias as compared to others. And another solution is one hot encoding. So let's see what is one hot encoding. So in one hot encoding, what we will be doing, so here in this case, I have two unique values of the state. I have Maharashtra and Punjab. So I will create two columns. So instead of giving labels, I am creating columns for each unique value present in the column. So in this column, I have two unique values. One is Punjab and Maharashtra. So I am creating two columns, one for Maharashtra and another is Punjab. And then in these columns, I am putting 1 and 0 based on the value of the state. For example, for first row, the value is Maharashtra. So I am putting 1 in Maharashtra while 0 in Punjab. Second is Punjab. I am putting 1 here for here. So you can clearly see that where I have Punjab, I am putting 1 in the Punjab column, and where I have Maharashtra, I am putting 1 in the Maharashtra column. And then I will remove this state column. So finally, I will remove this state column and I will have two new columns, one for Maharashtra and another for Punjab. So these two new columns are created and these two new columns will be called as dummy variables. So here I'm introducing another concept called as dummy variable, which is introduced in case of one hot encoding. So I will remove the column which carry string values or categorical values. So instead of that, I will be creating a unique column for each unique value. So here I have two unique values. So I'm creating two columns and these two columns will be created called as dummy variable. And I will put 1 in case of Maharashtra and I will put 1 in case of Punjab where I have corresponding value as 1. So this is the solution to solve this problem, that instead of giving code, I am using something called as dummy variable.
Excuse me, sir.
So let's, yeah, please.
Sir, if we do one hot encoding, will there be a problem that if we have multiple, large number of values, then we will have to make more dummy variables? Will it
Of course.
Complexity?
Yeah, of course. So this will be another issue, that you have to create large number of columns. Let's suppose in this state column you have 28 unique values. So then in this case you need to create 28 columns, and in that particular case you need to put 1 and 0 in all those values. So of course this is the overhead of using one hot encoding, but this is better solution as compared to label encoding, because the model will not be having any bias. Otherwise our model will suffer from bias. So in order to remove the bias, we have a only solution is to go for one hot encoding, but of course it has an overhead. As you mentioned, we have to create a column for each unique value. So let's suppose I have 28 state value, then I need to create 28 columns. Let me explain it a little bit more detail. So let's suppose I have this particular situation.
Sir?
Yeah, please.
Sir, वो dummy variable एक बार दोबारा बता रहे थे?
हाँ, मैं बता रहा हूँ दोबारा से. So let us consider this particular situation of state, and here in state I have 3 values. You can see Maharashtra, Punjab, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Punjab. So I have 3 unique values. So how many columns I need to create in this case? Can anybody tell me?
3.
So I will create 3 columns. So here you can see I am creating 3 columns. One is Maharashtra, second for Punjab, and third for MP. तो ये जो नए 3 कॉलम बना रहा हूं, इन नए 3 कॉलम को डमी वेरिएबल कहते हैं। तो डमी वेरिएबल और कुछ नहीं है, बस यही डमी वेरिएबल है। और जहां पे महाराष्ट्र उसके नीचे 1 आएगा और बाकी के नीचे 0। इस केस में पंजाब में 1 आएगा, यहाँ पे भी पंजाब में 1 आएगा, यहाँ पे MP में 1 आएगा और यहाँ पे पंजाब में 1 आएगा। So in this case, I have to create 3 dummy variables as I have mentioned, and in this case, I will remove that particular state column. लेकिन इसमें एक और concept है, and we called that concept as a dummy trap. So there is another concept called as dummy trap. So what is that dummy trap? Actually, let's suppose here you can see that here I have 3 columns. So let's suppose if the column if the value of first 2 column is 0, so can you tell me what is the value of third column in this case? If the value of first 2 column is 0, what is the value of third column? 1. So if you know the value of 2 column, it is automatically that you can derive the value of third column. So मान लीजिए आपको इन 2 columns की value पता है, 0 और 1. So what will be the value of third column in this case?
0.
If you know the value as 1 0, what will be the value of this?
0.
0. So you know that the value of third column is dependent on value of first 2 column. So it means that the third column can be derived from first 2 column, or you can say third column is completely dependent on first 2 column. So we solve this problem. So we mentioned that instead of using 3 column, we can only store 2 columns. We can remove 1 column in the picture, because automatically machine learning model automatically drive the value of third dummy variable. Because if you know that the value of first 2 dummy variable is 0, model will automatically consider that it will be equal to third column will be equal to 1, and if its value is 0 1, then it will be 0. If it is 1 0, then it will be again 0. 1 1 of course is not possible, because there will be only 1 in the row. So these are the 3 possibilities, and you can see that the value of third column is can be derived from first 2 column. So we make a rule that we need not to carry all the dummy variables. So we make a rule that it is not mandatory to have the value of all the dummy variables. So if you have n number of dummy variables, then you need to consider only n minus 1 column. अगर आपके पास n डमी वेरिएबल है तो आपको बस n minus 1 कंसिडर करने की जरूरत है, एक कॉलम की वैल्यू ऑटोमेटिकली ड्राइव हो जाएगी, and that particular concept is called as dummy trap. So it is important to note that the number of dummy variables which are introduced as a nominal column having n distinct value will always be n minus 1. तो अगर आपके पास n वैल्यूज हैं, अगर आपके पास 3 वैल्यूज हैं, तो आपको 3 कॉलम क्रिएट करने की जरूरत नहीं है, आपको कितने कॉलम क्रिएट करने की जरूरत है? 2, क्योंकि तीसरा कॉलम ऑटोमेटिकली ड्राइव हो जाएगा. Similarly, in this case, if you have only 2 columns, Maharashtra and Punjab, then there is only need to create a 1 column. The other column can automatically drive. For example, if you know that Maharashtra is 1, Punjab will be 0. If the value of this column is 0, then the second column will be 1. So it will be complement of this column. So अगर आपके पास n डमी वेरिएबल है तो आप उसमें से n minus 1 ही कंसिडर करने की जरूरत है. आपको n के n कंसिडर नहीं करने, क्योंकि जो लास्ट कॉलम है वो प्रीवियस कॉलम के ऊपर डिपेंड करता है. अगर आपके पास 2 कॉलम है तो जो सेकंड कॉलम होगा वो फर्स्ट कॉलम के ऊपर डिपेंड करेगा. अगर फर्स्ट की वैल्यू 0 है तो सेकंड की 1 है, और अगर इसकी 1 है तो उसकी 0 है. तो आप एक ही कॉलम को कंसिडर करिए, मशीन लर्निंग ऑटोमेटिकली दूसरे कॉलम की वैल्यू खुद ब खुद ड्राइव कर लेगा. सो दिस इज द कंसेप्ट. एंड इफ यू हैव 3 कॉलम, देन यू ओनली कंसिडर 2 कॉलम. मशीन लर्निंग मॉडल ऑटोमेटिकली टेक केयर ऑफ थर्ड कॉलम. So here you can see I am indicating the same concept by using mathematical notation. So just give me a minute to complete this. So here you can see that I have y, then we have a constant b naught. So here it will be b1 x1, b2 x2, b3 x3, and here you can see I have 2 dummy variable d1 and d2. So there is no need to consider D2. तो D2 को भी इग्नोर कर देंगे, सिर्फ एक ही कंसिडर करेंगे, that is D1, and इसका जो coefficient है, it is multiplied by coefficient D4. So this way I will solve the problem, and here I am only considering one dummy variable. So let us consider this particular situation. Here I have 3 columns. So in this there will be 3 unique values. So I am introducing, just give me a minute. I am introducing 3 dummy variables, D1, D2, and D3. So what I am telling, I will ignore this third dummy variable. So ultimately it will become B0, B1 X1, B1 X2, B3 X3. So this will be D1, this will be D2. So there will be no need to consider third column. So yeah, now you can ask me any question.
Sir, I have asked a question on chat.
Yeah, so you have asked me about ASCII code conversion or getting the value of each state. So that may not be a good solution. Actually, again, whatever value you will be given, that value will automatically added into the table. So a code which has a high ASCII value will get more weight as compared to a code which gets low ASCII value. So that will not be a solution. Let's suppose the ASCII value of one number is 65 and another number is 365. So the value which is getting ASCII code of 365 will get more weight as compared to this. So this is the same way of label encoding. So the only solution is one hot encoding. So whenever we have a categorical attribute, the solution to solve this problem is hot encoding, where we will convert number of columns which is equal to the unique values in the column, and then we will remove one column and we consider n minus 1 columns, and that case is called as solution for this. Okay, now I have a question for all of you for what is B0? So B0 is just a constant. So I mentioned in our previous session also that B0 equal to B1 X1. अगर आपको याद होगा तो y equal to mx plus c था. तो m is the slope and x is the constant. So अगर जो straight line थी वो ऐसी थी. So this slope is indicated with
B0
m,
is the constant,
and this B0 is the constant, which indicate that कि जो fresher है उसको कितना amount पे करोगे. तो ये straight line कहाँ से शुरू होगी? यहाँ से शुरू होगी, यहाँ से शुरू होगी, तो ये कहाँ से शुरू होगी? That is indicated with B0. Okay. So now let us consider this particular case. Here I have 2 columns. One is state and another is company type. And you can see that in state I also have categorical value, and I am also having a categorical value in company column. So how I will handle this? Can anybody tell me how we can handle this and how many columns need to be created? Take your time. I'm waiting for your responses on the chat box. Please use chat box.
Total 3 columns.
So please use chat box to answer.
columns create करने पड़ेंगे sir.
So how many columns we need to create? I'm looking for your chat box. So we have state and company. So in this case, for state, I have 3 unique values, Maharashtra, Punjab, and MP. So I will create Maharashtra, Punjab, and MP, 3 columns. Then we discussed that in dummy variable, you need to only consider 2 columns. So I will remove 1 column and will consider only n minus 1 columns. Similarly, here in this case, you have gold and silver. So I will create 2 columns for gold and silver. And ultimately, I will remove 1 column. So I will finally consider n minus 1 in this case. So एक column इसके लिए बनेगा और 2 column इसके लिए बनेंगे. तो ultimately there will be 3 columns for these 2 columns. तो a ultimate total number of column देखूं तो this will be my first column, second, third. तो 2 column इससे fourth और fifth और ये column बनेगा sixth. So there will be 6 input variable and there will be 1 आउटपुट वेरिएबल. तो ये 1 आउटपुट वेरिएबल होगा और 6 इनपुट वेरिएबल होंगे. क्यों होंगे? क्योंकि स्टेट है तो स्टेट के लिए 3 डमी वेरिएबल. देन यू नीड टू कंसीडर n-1 ओनली. सो यू विल क्रिएट दीज 2 कॉलम्स. जो आपकी ये टाइप है उसके लिए 2 कॉलम, बट अल्टीमेटली यू विल कंसीडर n-1.
एक्सक्यूज मी
प्लीज.
सर, हम जैसे स्टेट के लिए 2 बना रहे हैं तो सर हमें इसके लिए गोल्ड सिल्वर के लिए एक ही क्यों बनाना?
तीन थे ना, यहाँ देखिए 3 वैल्यूज है, तो महाराष्ट्र, पंजाब, एमपी 3 है, 3 में से 2 बनाए ना, सो n में से n-1 लिए, तो यहाँ n 2 था तो 2 में से 1 लिया, तो यहाँ 3 है तो 3 में से 2 लिए। तो आप एक लास्ट कॉलम को छोड़ सकते हैं क्योंकि 2 कॉलम आपकी तीसरी वैल्यू को बता देगा, तो ये एक दूसरे की वैल्यू बताएगा और ये 2 तीसरे की वैल्यू बताएंगे, इसलिए तीसरा या जो लास्ट वाला कॉलम है या फर्स्ट वाला कॉलम आप कह लीजिए, उसको आप इग्नोर कर देंगे। गॉट इट?
Yes.
डमी वेरिएबल्स का सर फॉर्मूला n-1 में होगा ना सर?
हाँ जी, n-, yes. So now it is the time to implement this concept in lab. तो आज अब हम इसको इम्प्लीमेंट करते हैं और देखते हैं कि कैसे हम वन हॉट इनकोडिंग, लेबल इनकोडिंग कर सकते हैं और किस तरह से हम प्रॉफिट जो है वो पता कर सकते हैं किसी भी कंपनी के लिए। So now let's move to Python and implement this quickly. So this is my code. Yes. So the first step will be to select our desirable library. So here, this is my spider, and this is folders. I have selected multiple linear regression, my folder. I will share these files with you. So here you can see I have all the files, and this particular file is 50addagency.csv. So if I click on this CSV file, you will see these are the contents. And here I have a profit as the last column, and I want to predict the profit of the company on the basis of all these input attributes. Input attribute is first is expenses on print media, expenses made by company on social media, expenses made by company on outdoor ad expenses, and the city in which that company is operating. And finally, I have a profit attribute. And in this, I have total 50 rows, which start from 1 to 50. So those is 51 tak ja raha hai. So I have 50 values. So I called this file as 50addagency.csv. तो आज हमें इस CSV फाइल के ऊपर multiple linear regression apply करना है. And in order to apply multiple linear regression on this file, I have to process this where I include multiple input attribute as first print media, second social media, third outdoor ad expenses, fourth one is city, and then I have to print profit. तो इसको अभी आज हम implement करते हैं, and I have code for this. So let's do this step by step. So इसको पहले let's open another PPT. Yeah. So code for multiple linear regression. So the first step will be to import the library. So I'm again waiting for your responses on the chat box. So can you tell me how many libraries I need to import in order to start working on a regression? Yes. How many libraries?
Four.
So what are those libraries? What are those?
Sir, NumPy, Panda,
Import NumPy as
Matplotlib.
NP, import pandas as PD.
Very good.
sklearn.
Yeah, so here I have imported all these desirable library, and you know that NumPy is the basic library which include all mathematical operations. Here I am importing it as NP. Matplotlib may be required if I need to import made some graphs, and Pandas is a SQL of Python. So this is three most important, and I will import sklearn whenever it is required. So first of all, I need to read the CSV file. Can you tell me what is the method we have to read the CSV file?
Read that variables a data set, then equal to
read .csv.
Yeah,
then we pass the name of the file.
Very good, very good. So here we have a method named as read_CSV, and in this method we have to pass the name of the CSV file, and this is a pandas method. So pandas is available in my PD. So pd.read_CSV file, I will able to read this file, and these are, let's suppose, the content of this file, and it will be loaded into my data set. So here in this data set I have my desirable data. So after reading this, what will be the next step? Can anybody tell me?
Splitting of data.
I have to create input and output attribute. तो इनपुट और आउटपुट एट्रीब्यूट क्रिएट करने के लिए आपको x और y क्रिएट करना है. सो कैन एनीबॉडी टेल मी व्हाट हाउ आई विल क्रिएट x
Sir,
in this?
using iloc. Using iloc.
So I have to use iloc method to create x. और x iloc में क्या लिखूंगा? Can anybody tell me in order to
So
create
we want
x?
to take all the rows, so we take only column, sir. And we want to take the first row, first column, and we can take from either 0 to 1.
नहीं, सिर्फ एक ही थोड़ी लेंगे हम, ये सभी लेंगे ना. ऑल दीज विल बी माय इनपुट एट्रीब्यूट. सो x में ये सारे, ये सारा मेरा x
0
बनेगा.
to 4. 0 to 4.
और ये
We can
y
also mention -1 except last all the columns.
yeah, so we have two solution. One, we can write a generalized code that select all the rows and select all the columns except the last column. So this will select all the rows and all the columns except the last column, and I am storing this into x. Or you can mention the number that 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's suppose these are the number. So you can also mention 0 to 4 because upper limit is excluded. So it will include 0, 1, 2, and 3. तो जो number 4 है ये exclude रहेगा. So you can mention like this way. You can mention like this way that you want all the rows column number 0 to up to number 4. 4 will be excluded. So it will be 0, 1, 2, 3. So it will select these 4 columns and put it into X. And of course, it will select the 4th index column, which is a profit, and will store it into Y. So this way I will able to create X and Y. You can use any of the both statement. You can use generalized code or you can use any index value. And of course, for profit, you need to just use number 4, and that will be stored in Y. So I have X and Y, so that will be created. Okay, good. So let's do these tasks side by side in Python now. तो ये मेरे पास फाइल थी. Let's increase the size of this. Yes. Good. So here we are importing all the desirable files. Then I am reading the file. Read होके ये data set में जाएगी. If you look into variable explorer, just first remove all the variables. Yeah. So I am executing it again. Import the files. Create data set. So you can see here I have created a data set which is a data frame. 50 rows, 5 columns. Let's see its content. So these are the expenses, 4 column, and 5th is a categorical. So we have to handle this. So this will be creating a problem, and I have a profit. So next I need to create X and Y. So as I have mentioned, I can select all the columns except the last one, and in Y I just need last column, that is profit. So after executing this, X and Y will be created. So just give me a minute. So I have created this. Then create this. So data set has been created. Then I have to create X and Y. So here you can see X and Y has been created. So in X, I have these 4 values. So all these are number. There is no problem. But here I have values of cities. It is Delhi, Mumbai, Chandigarh. So I have 3 values of cities. So I need to process this. And in Y, I have simple profit. तो अब सबसे पहला काम है इस जो सिटी है इसको हैंडल करना. So how I can handle this city? Can anybody tell me? इस सिटी को कैसे हैंडल करेंगे?
So one hot encoding.
Creating the dummy variables.
So we have to create dummy variable, or we have to apply one hot encoding over this. So before applying one hot encoding, I will also tell you how to apply label encoding. तो दोनों तरीके एक बार लिख देते हैं. लेबल इनकोडिंग में क्या होगा, हर एक को एक कोड असाइन हो जाएगा. लेट्स सपोज इसको 0 हो जाएगा, इसको 1 हो जाएगा, इसको 2 हो जाएगा. तो जहां जहां मुंबई होगा वहां 0 आ जाएगा, जहां दिल्ली होगा वहां 2 आ जाएगा. सो दिस वे आई कैन असाइन द कोड, बट ऑफ कोर्स दिस इज नॉट ए गुड वे. बट लेट्स क्विकली अंडरस्टैंड द कोड टू अप्लाई लेबल इनकोडिंग. तो हम सबसे पहले लेबल इनकोडिंग का कोड जो है वो डिस्कस कर लेते हैं. So in order to apply label encoding, we have to import this from a sklearn. So here you can see that in sklearn, I have a pre-processing. So this task is considered as a data pre-processing क्योंकि अभी मैं कोई model build नहीं कर रहा, ये simple data pre-processing हो रही है. So this is a data pre-processing, and in this data pre-processing, I have a class named as label encoder. So label encoding करने के लिए हमारे पास एक label encoder class है. So I am creating or importing this class as label encoder, and then you know that after this I have to create the object of this class. So second step में मैं इस class का एक object create कर रहा हूँ. So this is the class, and I have created an object called as label encoder in the lowercase. So now this object label encoder has been created. Now can you tell me on which index value I have to apply this label encoder?
3.
0, 1, 2, 3. So I have to apply this on 3 of on number 3 of. So let me write. So I have to apply this on x, और इसके कौन से कॉलम पे अप्लाई करना पड़ेगा मुझे? थर्ड कॉलम के ऊपर. और जो कितनी रोज पे करना है? I have to apply it on all the rows. So if you look into this, so मुझे जो label encoding है वो अप्लाई करनी है x के ऊपर by applying this on all the row of x and on the third column of x. So we have to mention this in our subsequent steps. So here you can see that in next line of code, I am applying this label encoder में एक method है fit underscore transform. So this fit underscore transform method will apply label encoding and automatically update my data set which is available in as x. तो x के ऊपर ये fit transform method apply करेगा by considering all the rows, and it will apply on third column, and the results which it returns will be stored back into x. So x will be updated. So after execution of these 3 lines of code, my x will be updated with the labeled value by using a method fit underscore transform. So fit underscore transform actually a combination of 2 methods. One is it generates the value 0, 1, 2, and it also apply transformation over the data set. So it will update my x, and it will be yeah, please.
Is it a permanent updation like we
yes, it is a permanent updation, and my data will be changed. So at present you can see that you have these values Mumbai, Chandigarh, and so on. So let's execute this and see what will happen if I execute these line of code. So first of all, here I am importing label encoder, then I am creating its object. So let's first import it. So it has been imported. Then I am creating object has been created, and here I am performing some action. I am performing fit transform over third column and then updating it. So a command has been executed. Now let's see the content of X. This is the beauty of label encoder, and now you can see that my city value has been converted into 0, 1, and 2. So now you can see that the city which get a value 2 will get more weight as compared to a city having a value 0. So this is the problem of label encoder, and but of course now you can understand that by using these 3 lines of code I can easily apply label encoding. So this is the syntax, and we have successfully applied label encoding over our data set. So this is the code for label encoding, and we have just executed that and tell you that this will be having 0, 1, 2, 3, and this will be creating some problem. Yeah, please.
Sir, can you explain the line label encoder here? Dot fit underscore transform.
Yeah, so this is very simple. Here I have a method called as fit underscore transform जो code assign करेगा. तो ultimately 0, 1, 2, 3 जो code है that has been assigned by this method, और इसको किसके ऊपर लगाना था? तो इसको x के ऊपर अप्लाई करना था, x की सारी रोज के ऊपर, और किस कॉलम पे अप्लाई करना था? थर्ड कॉलम पे अप्लाई करना था. So that's why I mentioned कि you have to apply it on all the rows of column number third of x. So it actually performed it took the data from this, changed it up and converted it into 0, 1, 2, and then stored it back into x so that x will become update. So after this, when you execute this command and check the content of x, it has been updated. तो वापस result x में ही store कर दिया so that x आपका update हो जाए. Okay. But we know that this is not the good way to handle this. So the solution is to perform categorical attribute by using one hot encoding. So here we will now discussing the code for one hot encoding. So it's very important to write down some of the important points which I am going to discuss now. So यहाँ पे जो हम use कर रहे हैं class, that class is called as column transformer. So here I am transforming my columns. And which column I am transforming? I am transforming my city column. And that city column will be converted into 3 dummy variables. You know that dummy variable 1, 2, and 3. So for this, I have to use a column transformer class. I have to import this, and it is available in sklearn.compose. तो sklearn.compose में से मुझे ये import करनी है. Just give me a minute to set my charger. Just wait for a minute. Yes, so here we will be using first of all a column transformer, and we are importing it from a sublibrary compose, which is a part of sklearn. And of course, I am also using one hot encoder. So that is, we have already discussed the code to import one hot encoder. So here you can see that we are applying the column transformer over this function. So column transformer, we are creating an object of column transformer by specifying that we are performing first of all encoding, and this encoding has been performed by one hot encoder, and then this one hot encoder is mentioned as column number 3. So we are specifying the index value 3. And on this specified index value, I am applying one hot encoder. So in transformer, all the encoders are mentioned. And here I am specifying my encoder as one hot encoder for index value 3. And this is another important attribute that is remainder equal to pass through. So this means that कि जो बाकी के index हैं. So here I have mentioned index value 3. So what about the remaining index? So I have index value 0, 1, 2, and 3. So here I am mentioning that कि for index value 3, apply this one hot encoder. So it will apply one hot encoder on 3, while all remaining means 0, 1, and 2. So these remaining 0, 1, and 2 will be passed through as such. So there will be no change on 0, 1, and 2, but it will only make changes in index value 3. And after making this, we are creating an object with the name as city. So here I am performing fit transform operation over this X. So this data is available in X. So here I have mentioned that the data is available in X, and converting it back into array and storing back into X. So this will update my X with the one hot encoder values. And here this is only one line of code which is important. Again, I will repeat it. So first of all, we are specifying that I need column transformer. Then after column transformer, I am just creating its object with name CT. I am mentioning that transformer is one hot encoder. Here I am mentioning the name of encoder, giving the index value as 3. and remainder as pass through mean that 0, 1, 2, 3, these are the index values. So one hot encoding will be applied on index value 3, while 0, 1, and 2 will be as such pass through into the output. So this will be fit transform and X will be updated. So here you can see that there are two possibilities of remainder. One is pass through and another is drop. So if the value is dropped, it means that only 3 will be processed, remaining will be dropped. But here I want that remaining also into my output. So that's why it is important to specify this as pass through. If you don't mention pass through, then only 3 will be passed. 0, 1, 2 will not be passed. It will be dropped. So it should not be dropped. For this, I have to mention remainder equal to pass through. So let's go back and execute this code to see how this will appear in the output. So we are here and you can see that I have already labeled attribute like 0, 1, and 2. But now this time we want to apply one hot encoding. So here I have the code for one hot encoding. So first of all, I am importing one hot encoder. Then I am importing column transformer. So both has been imported. So this is the line of code which is important. So only one line of code. So here I am mentioning that transformer as one hot encoder, mentioning that it should be applied on index value 3 and remainder pass through. All the index value will be passed and then it will be updated into X. So let's execute these lines of code. So you can see statement has been executed and now I can check the value of X. Just give me a minute. So yes, you can see that now X has these values. So X के अब values check कीजिए. So there are three dummy variables which has been created. So earlier I have values of city as 0, 1, 2, and 3. So अब ये cities सबसे आगे आ चुकी हैं and the values is 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0. तो ये 3 dummy variable जो है ये create हो चुके हैं and you can see that कि इसमें से किसी एक में 1 होगा, सभी में 1 नहीं है. So here you can see there is 1. Here I have 1. So depending upon the value of the city, I have 1 into that. And these are the 3 dummy variable D1, D2, and D3, because I have 3 unique values of the city. So this way 3 dummy variable has been created. If you have any doubt, you can ask me any question.
Shouldn't 2 have been created because we do n-1?
Yeah, so that will be our next step. So in next step, I will be selecting only 2 and that will be my next line of code. But at this point, I have selected all 3. So let's execute it again. And after this, you can see that in so you can see that after executing of this, my X is like this. So I have 3 variables and you know that I have to consider only 2. So I should remove 1 of the dummy variable. तो अब डमी ट्रैप को सॉल्व करते हैं और इस डमी ट्रैप में मुझे एक को इग्नोर करना है और कोई 2 कंसिडर करने हैं. सो आई विल बी रिमूविंग फर्स्ट कॉलम बट आई विल बी सिलेक्टिंग ऑल अदर कॉलम्स. तो ये मेरा x है. तो अब x का जो फर्स्ट कॉलम है ये डमी वेरिएबल है, तो इसको मैं हटाना चाहता हूं और बाकी सारे के सारे कॉलम्स रखना चाहता हूं. सो आई विल कॉल्ड दिस प्रोसेस एज डमी ट्रैप. So this is the code and I hope you can understand it very well. So here you can see I am again updating X by considering all the rows and selecting columns with index value 1 dot star. So I am selecting X for all the rows and column will start from index value 1. तो जो index value 0 थी, जो first column था, उसको ignore कर दिया and I have not mentioned any end limit. It means that I am selecting all the columns starting from index value 1. तो index value 1 से जितने भी कॉलम है मैं उन सबको ले रहा हूँ. So index value 0 का जो
Sir, if we don't write
index
dummy
value,
graph, then it will consider all the columns.
yeah, it will otherwise consider all the 3 columns. So here I am ignoring column at index value 0. So you can see that I am selecting all the rows, but mentioning that column will be selected from index value 1 to end. So let's execute this and see the output, how it will appear. So let's execute this line of code. And after this, you can see it become 50,5. Otherwise, it is 50,6. So if you see, now you have only 2 columns. तो डमी वेरिएबल 3 थे, 3 में से 2 बचे. तो 3 हमारे पास ये कॉलम है जो कि उनके एक्सपेंसेस हैं और 2 डमी वेरिएबल्स आगे. I have removed third column. So this is the same thing which we have mentioned in the theory. हमने वही काम किया, 3 कॉलम बने, इनमें से एक को हमने हटा दिया. So this has created 3 dummy variables. And then this line of code has removed first dummy variable. कोई भी जो पहला है उसको हम ignore कर देंगे क्योंकि I ultimately need n-1. So now this is your x and this is your y. So yes, now we can build our model because now the model is all numbers. So यहाँ में मेरे पास number है, यहाँ पे मेरे पास number है. Now can you tell me what will be the next step, how to build a linear regression model over this?
Regressor fit we will use. Selenium.
We need to split the data set into test and train.
Yeah. So now the next step will be to split the data into training and testing. तो पिछली बार हमने काफी टाइम इस पे लगाया था to understand that how to split training and testing. तो आपको याद होगा कि जो x है, that x will be splitted into 2 part, or that will be called as x train and x test. Similarly, y will split into y train and y test. कोई मुझे बताएगा ऐसा क्यों करेंगे हम?
Because we will half of the data for means 1/3 of the data for training and rest for testing.
So that we can test the model on unseen data.
Yeah, so that we can test the data on unseen data. So we will not show everything to the model. So we will only pass 60% or 70% of data for training and remaining we will use it for testing. तो अब मुझे बताइए कि जब ट्रेनिंग करेंगे तो हम कौन सा मेथड यूज करते थे, फिट या प्रेडिक्ट?
Fit method, sir, to build the model.
Fit method. So fit में क्या पास करेंगे? Can you tell me what I will pass in the fit?
X train and Y train.
So we will pass x train and y train to fit method.
Sir, you are muted.
Yeah. So in fit I have to pass x train and y train. तो जिससे मॉडल फिट होगा. बट ड्यूरिंग प्रिडिक्शन आई हैव टू यूज प्रिडिक्ट मेथड. सो व्हाट वैल्यू आई शुड पास इन प्रिडिक्ट मेथड?
X test, sir. X test.
वेरी गुड. सो एक्स टेक्स्ट के ऊपर आप प्रिडिक्शन करेंगे एंड दिस विल गिव यू प्रिडिक्टेड वैल्यू. सो एक्स टेस्ट के ऊपर जब आप प्रिडिक्शन करेंगे, इसके ऊपर जब आप प्रिडिक्शन करेंगे, टेस्ट करेंगे, तो ये आपको वाई प्रिडिक्ट देगा. और इस वाई प्रिडिक्ट को किसके साथ कंपेयर करेंगे? ये प्रिडिक्टेड. वेरी गुड, मुझे बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है, आपको सब याद है. सो ये वाई प्रिडिक्ट, वाई टेस्ट एक्चुअल वैल्यूज होंगी, ये प्रिडिक्टेड वैल्यूज होंगी. और अब आप इस एक्चुअल और प्रिडिक्टेड वैल्यू के ऊपर एरर कैलकुलेट करोगे. और आपको याद होगा कि आप रूट मीन स्क्वायर और सिंपल मीन एब्सोल्यूट एरर, वो सारे एरर्स को कैलकुलेट करके चेक कर सकते हैं कि आपकी परफॉर्मेंस कैसी है. सो दिस इज व्हाट वी आर गोइंग टू डू नेक्स्ट. So first of all, we have x and y. So ये x और y है, and we have to split it into x train, y train, x test and y test. तो इसको तोड़ेंगे. फिर सेकेंड स्टेप में हम इस ऊपर फिट करेंगे y train और x train और y train के ऊपर. So ये डेटा पास करते हुए फिट किया जाएगा. Then we will make predictions on x test. We will get y predict, and in final step we will compare actual values which are in y test with the predicted values which are in y predict. So if you have any doubt, जो भी मैंने अभी draw किया है, you can ask me any questions. Otherwise, I will clear this. तो क्लियर करने से पहले अगर आपको कोई भी क्वेश्चन है, you can ask me. I am also looking at the YouTube chat. So if you have any question, please. Very
Sir, why
good.
we have neglected column 1?
So you can neglect any column. Ultimately तीन आपके पास डमी वेरिएबल थे, तीन में से किसी एक को neglect करना था. So it was most easy to from the coding point of view to just ignore the first column. So you can ignore maybe second column, you can ignore maybe third column. तीनों में से किसी को भी कर सकते थे, लेकिन हमने फर्स्ट को कर दिया.
So it's not a rule to ignore the last column only. So it can be any of these. Right?
आपको डमी में ही करना है ना, तो डमी वेरिएबल तो आपके पहले तीन थे. आपने देखा जब डमी वेरिएबल बने थे तो वो शुरू में आ गए थे. तो इट इज एट इंडेक्स वैल्यू 0, 1 एंड 2. सो आपको शुरू में ही करना है. तो लास्ट कॉलम तो आपका ये वाला है जो कि आपका एक्चुअल कॉलम है. So these are index values. So index values are important. So dummy variable are actually index value 0 or 1 and it was at 2. तो 0, 1, 2 में से किसी को remove करना था और coding के point of view से it was easy to remove the first column. So that's why we removed.
Sir, is it necessary to prevent dummy trap or is it optional?
Yeah. Sure. Otherwise, the model accuracy will be low, and this is considered as collinearity concept that their data should be independent with each other. Here our data is dependent, so this is the violation of the machine learning rule that कि आपके जो columns है वो एक दूसरे से independent होने चाहिए. But here you can see that our third column is dependent on the value of two columns, so it's important to remove that particular problem.
So will it also affect the accuracy of the model?
Yeah, of course, it will affect if you don't do that. Okay, so let's move next. So now you know that how to do this. So we have performed up to this point. So the next step will be to perform a train test split. And you know that for train test split, we have a simple method called as train test split, which is available in model selection. So now good thing is that कि अब जितना भी कोड है वो सेम है सिंपल लीनियर रिग्रेशन का. तो कोई भी नई चीज अब मैं नहीं बताऊंगा. इट इज द सेम कोड which we have discussed in our previous class for simple linear regression. So here I am using train test split, which is a part of model selection. Train test split में मैंने x और y पास किया. X will split into x train x test. Y will split into y train and y test. I am mentioning test size 0.2. You can play with this. I have 50 records, so it means that 20% of record means 40% of record. 20% of record मतलब 40 रिकॉर्ड जो है वो ट्रेनिंग के लिए यूज होंगे और 10 रिकॉर्ड जो है वो टेस्टिंग के लिए यूज होंगे. बिकॉज टेस्ट साइज इज 0.2, तो 100 में से 20, 50 में से 10. तो I will only having 10 records for testing and 40 will be used for training. And you know that random underscore state is equal to 0, which ensure that every rerun of the code will return us same set of records. So let's execute this. And after executing this, you will see that I will have x train, y train, x test and y test. So here you can see x train, x test. So आप देखिए, in x train I have 45. So 40 records are in training. In x test there are 10 records for testing. And in y train I have 40 records for profit and 10 records for testing. Then we have to build linear regression model and fit the model. So yes, so we have to import this linear regression class, which is a part of linear model. तो अब सेम कोड है. देखिए वहां पे linear regression थी, अब भी linear regression है. Only difference in the data. Earlier I have only one input variable, but now I have multiple input variable. But the class is same. It is linear regression. I am importing from linear model, creating its object, and then passing fit method and passing x train and y train. So this is the same code which we have applied for simple linear regression. The same code will work for multiple linear regression. Only difference now in this time that in x train I have now 5 different columns. Earlier I have only one column. So this is the only difference. So let's execute it. So let's execute this. So model has been fitted. So I have fitted the model. Then let's make predictions. So we obtain y predict. So this is y predict. You know that by prediction I have to pass x test. So these are my predicted value. Actual value कहाँ से मिलेंगी? ये so this is y test. So you can see how accurate this is. So काफी close है. First value, actual value is 1,03,282, and this is again 1,03,015. So these are the values which are very close to each other. Still not that accurate. You always remember that we have just 40 records for training and 10 record for testing, but in actual machine learning model we have thousands of record for training, so accuracy will be quite high when you worked on actual data set.
So we can check it on different ratios to find out that on which we get more accuracy.
Yeah, of course you can play with this and you can check it accordingly, and this is the way. And but of course we can also calculate different errors. So you remember that we have different matrix class, so we can use this matrix from sklearn, and this has a method called as mean absolute error, where I need to pass actual and predicted value. Actual value is in y test, predicted value is in y predict. Similarly, we can calculate mean square error, and we can also calculate a root mean square error. This is again the same code which we have discussed in simple linear regression. So I can execute this, and these are the values of errors which we have obtained. Of course, there are a high value of error because my data set is very small, but ultimately this is the concept. And we have learned very important concept of multiple linear regression, and we have also learned how to apply how to handle categorical data, particularly in this case where we have first of all apply label encoding, and then we discussed how to apply one hot encoding to solve the problem of label encoding. So quickly I am going to re-execute the same code for you, so that if जो भी आपके थोड़े बहुत doubts हैं वो भी आपके clear हो जाए. So let's follow this again with me. These are the files. So I have this 50 ad agency. The first step will be to import the libraries. We have imported Open Variable Explorer. So first step will be to load the data set. I have loaded the data set. You can see I have city. This is profit. So all these will be my X and profit will be my Y. So for X, I selected all the columns except the last one. And for Y, I have selected the fourth column. This is X now. You can see this is city, all in categories. So first of all, we try to solve this with label encoding. So let's do this with label encoding. For this, we have imported label encoder, and creating objects. We have just used fit transform method and applied it on index value 3 and updated X. So if I do this, you can see X is converted, city is converted into 0, 1, 2. So this is the problem, and we have to solve this through dummy variables or one hot encoding. For this, I have to use column transformer. I mentioned transformer as one hot encoder, applied it on 3, and mentioned that key remainder is passed through so that index value 0, 1, 2 pass as such. And then I applied it fit transform method. So let's do this. So here I have applied it, and you can see this is now important. So you can see that dummy variable now appear in the beginning. So dummy variable अपने आप आगे आ गए हैं और जो बाकी column थे वो पीछे चले गए हैं. And I have 3 dummy variables which are at index value 0, 1 and 2. So simplicity ये थी कि आप index value 0 को remove कर दें, क्योंकि सारी row select कर लेता हूँ और column 1 से लेके सारे select कर लेता हूँ. This is the most easiest way for the code to do this. So that's why in dummy tram, I am selecting all the rows and column from index value 1 so that index value 0 will be removed. So I'm doing this. I'm selecting all the columns of X except the index value 0. So after this, you can see I have only 2. So problem solve हो गई. तो ये 2 dummy variables बचे और ये बचा मेरा बाकी column. So now this is X, this is Y. So now I am ready to perform train test split and building the model. So इसके बाद तो simple था कि हमने train test split किया. So we just performed train test split, जिसमें से 0.2 किया है, तो 40 रिकॉर्ड ट्रेनिंग में आ गए, 10 रिकॉर्ड जो थे वो टेस्टिंग में चले गए. So now you know that कि जब ट्रेनिंग करनी है, मॉडल बिल्ड करना है, so I have to pass X train and Y train. So here you can see that in linear regression, this is the same class. I am invoking its method fit and passing X train and Y train. So model will be built. Then during prediction, I have to pass X test and it will give me predicted value in Y predict. So I am executing this. So I am getting Y predict. So here, this is Y predict. These are my predicted values and these are my actual values. And then you can simply compare your error. So this is the code to display the value of all the errors. So here I am passing mean absolute error by printing passing actual and predicted values. Here I'm calling mean square error and here mean root mean square error. So these are the values and still the error are quite high, but the reason is that the data set is small. So आज के लिए इतना ही है. So now it is a time for quiz.
Sir, can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
Actually, it's a very basic question. In the session, we have heard multiple times that categorical data. So are there any other data types available in machine learning? Like, I understand what is categorical data, but there must be
yeah,
other
we have number data. So these are numbers like R&D and all those. Categorical data mean that a column which has categorical values like Maharashtra, Punjab, MP. We also have date, we also have Boolean. So these are same data types which are available in SQL and or in other programming language. So it is date, Boolean, number type. And here these are just string values. And when we have fixed set of strings, then it is called as categorical.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So for all of them, we can imply one hot encoding.
Pardon, can you repeat?
So for all these data like Boolean and we can imply one hot encoding.
We can. अब आप मुझे बताइए कि अगर Boolean है तो कौन सी encoding use करनी चाहिए? So if you have Boolean 0, 1 or true, false, what kind of encoding can solve the?
Label encoding.
हाँ, तो वहाँ label encoding चल जाएगी क्योंकि ultimately you have only 0, 1. तो 0, 1 ही है तो और नहीं है कुछ. तो 0, 1 में अगर आप दो कॉलम भी बनाते हो डमी वेरिएबल में तो एक में 0 दूसरे में 1 तो ऐसे आएगा ना. तो अल्टीमेट यू विल इग्नोर 1 एंड कंसीडर दिस ओनली. तो इफ यू हैव बूलियन वेरिएबल सिर्फ कोई भी कैटेगोरिकल जिसमें दो ही क्लासेस हैं देन वी अप्लाई लेबल इनकोडिंग. बट इफ वी हैव मल्टीपल क्लासेस and this is not a rule, it simply you can also apply label encoding if it is required. तभी मैंने आपको लेबल इनकोडिंग बता दी है. तो अगर आपको लगता है कि वो 0, 1, 2 जो उस लेबल दिया है वो डिजायरेबल है then we will keep it as a label encoding. But if you feel that कि ये जो ऑर्डरिंग हो रही है 9 को नंबर 0 से that can create the problem, just like cities it can create the problem, so then you will go for one hot encoding. But if there is no problem in ordering it from to 9, it is actually desirable, then you can go with label encoding also. So it actually depends upon the type of data you have. So if you have city, it will go for one hot encoder, but if you have gender, it is equally good for label encoding. No need for one hot encoding. Right?
Yes.
So एक बार क्विकली पॉलिनोमियल लीनियर रिग्रेशन कर लेते हैं थियोरेटिकली और जो उसका प्रैक्टिकल है वो कल करेंगे, अगली बार करेंगे. So sometime our data is of like this nature. You can see here the data is behaving like this way, then it shoot up. अगर आपका डेटा जो है वो स्ट्रेट लाइन में चेंज नहीं हो रहा, earlier we were in simple and multiple linear regression we try to fit it with straight line, but here if you try to fit a straight line there will be huge errors, all this will be error. So in this case if your data is changing like this way, we called it as a polynomial, then it is, you cannot apply simple or multiple linear regressions. For this kind of data set you have to go for polynomial regression. So it depends upon the type of data you have. So can you give me any example where we have data like this? आजकल ये बहुत कॉमन हो गया था ग्राफ. ऐसा ग्राफ कब देखने को मिलता है?
कोविड केस नंबर.
So जितने भी कोविड केसेस हैं, so जितने भी कोविड केसेस हैं या टेम्परेचर तो चलो फिर भी वो लीनियर कुछ ग्रो कर रहा है, लेकिन जितने भी अगर कोविड केसेस हैं को अगर आपको एनालाइज करना है और कोविड केसेस को प्रिडिक्ट करना है, कोविड केसेस नंबर है, तो वो रिग्रेशन में आएगा. बट यू कैन नॉट अप्लाई सिंपल एंड मल्टीपल लीनियर रिग्रेशन इन दिस केस. सो इन दिस केस यू हैव टू अप्लाई पॉलिनोमियल लीनियर रिग्रेशन. तो कोविड में पॉलिनोमियल लीनियर रिग्रेशन चलेगा. कोई और एग्जांपल बताइए जिसमें डाटा ऐसे चेंज होता हो.
स्टॉक मार्केट.
स्टॉक मार्केट. चलो और कुछ.
सर आपके फैंस.
हाँ, सो जो YouTube के कमेंट्स हैं या जो व्यूज हैं, दे ऑल डिपेंड. एकदम से ही वो वायरल हो जाता है एक पर्टिकुलर थ्रेशोल्ड लिमिट के बाद. So yes, it is a polynomial kind of nature. It take time, but once it become viral, it just shoot up. So yes, it can be a case. Similarly, अगर आप सैलरी की बात करते हैं एक कंपनी में रैंक वाइज, so if you consider higher rank people and low rank people and whole organization, so you will see that कि जो CEO वाले हैं या जो top management है, they earn quite high as compared to those people who are working at managerial post. So normally these are the employees जिसको आप सैलरी देते हैं, लेकिन जैसे ही वो CEO टाइप वाली पोस्ट शुरू होती हैं तो एकदम से उनकी सैलरी शूट अप कर जाती है. तो वहां पे भी पॉलिनोमियल लीनियर रिग्रेशन को अप्लाई किया जा सकता है. So all these are the cases where if you feel that your data is like this nature, then we apply polynomial linear regression. And this is the theoretical explanation of all these regressions. This is simple linear regression. We know that here we have only one input variable. We have multiple input variable in case of multiple linear regression, but still it is linear. But here I have only one input variable है x1 ही, but x1 क्या हो रहा है, polynomial way में change हो रहा है. So x1, x1 square, x1 cube, x1. So here x1 is changing in a polynomial form. So that's why it is called as polynomial. But still it is linear. Why still it is called as linear? कि जो coefficient है, coefficient अभी भी आपका linear है. So we called it polynomial linear regression. अब आप क्वेश्चन बोल सकते हैं कि भाई ये polynomial regression नहीं है. Why it is called as polynomial linear? Polynomial linear is called polynomial linear because your coefficient is still linear, but your x1 is changing in a polynomial form. So yes, so here I will take the case of positions. So let's suppose these are the position of the companies where I have some teaching post, guest faculty and so on, and then I have some administration post like dean, vice chancellor, chancellor, and if I predict their salary, it is like this. So अगर मैं इनकी salary draw करूं तो ये ऐसे आ रही है. तो इस ग्राफ के लिए मैं simple linear regression use नहीं कर सकता. I have to, if I apply linear regression, there will be huge errors. But if I apply polynomial regression, it will fulfill the case. So here I will apply polynomial linear regression, and through polynomial linear regression, we will solve the problem. तो अगली बार जब हम मिलेंगे, तो we will apply on this data set polynomial linear regression, and then we will solve it. Okay, मेरा last question है आपसे जाते समय. ये positions है. और ऑफ कोर्स ये स्ट्रिंग है, कैटेगोरिकल वैल्यूज है. तो इन पोजीशंस को आप लेबल इनकोडिंग से हैंडल करना चाहे या वन हॉट इनकोडिंग से हैंडल करना चाहे.
We can take it as a label encoding because the position chancellor is have more priority than the position of the teaching assistant.
Yes. तो यहाँ जो है हो गया. तो अगर आप इसको लेबल करते 1 to 10, so now in this case 10 should be more as compared to 1. यहाँ पे जो chancellor है, it has more bias in term of salary as compared to teaching assistant. I want to give more weight to chancellor or vice chancellor as compared to teaching assistant. So यहाँ पे आप देखिए जो level है, मैं इसको 1 to 10 ही रखना चाहूंगा कि 10 का जो A है, 7 ये है. So here it indicates order. I want to maintain that order. This is not a city. This is a position where order matters. But in case of city, order does not matter. So here you want to retain the order. So in this case, I will apply label encoding. So मैं इसीलिए कह रहा था कि label encoding को हम just discard नहीं कर सकते. this is a data set where label encoding will be preferred as compared to one hot encoding, because I want to retain the information of level. I want to give more weight to chancellor as compared to teaching assistant in order to predict the salary. You can see that the salary of there is a huge difference. So I want to give more weight, and this can only be given if I will go for label encoding. So good. So now it is a time for quiz. You can take 1 minute break. After this, I will set my quiz. तो आप 1 मिनट की ब्रेक ले लीजिए, उसके बाद क्विज शुरू करते हैं.
सर
या प्लीज. हाँ बोलो.
सर जो मल्टीपल लीनियर रिग्रेशन के अंदर सर ज्योमेट्रिक सर वो मैथमेटिकल इक्वेशन थी सर, वो उसका ज्योमेट्रिक रिप्रेजेंटेशन क्या होगा?
हाँ, वो मेथड ग्राफिकली नहीं हम देख सकते उसको, बिकॉज ग्राफिकली आई कैन ओनली सी 2 वेरिएबल्स. हियर आई हैव मल्टीपल वेरिएबल्स, सो या वी कांट सी इट ग्राफिकली. मैं इसका ग्राफ नहीं डिजाइन कर पाया, तो इसलिए हमने उसका ग्राफ डिस्कस नहीं किया.
Can't plot the sir graph of multiple linear regression.
No, we cannot draw it because वो मल्टी डायमेंशनल हो गया ना. ग्राफ तो 2 डायमेंशनल या 3 डायमेंशन में आ सकता है, लेकिन आपकी 5 या 6 जब डिमेंशन हो जाएंगी, so you cannot then draw the graph. Yes.
So then if we use these type of models like multiple regression model in our research, then how we will show the graphical representation output of those models?
उस केस में एरर एनालिसिस होगा. उस केस में ग्राफिकल एनालिसिस इस पर्टिकुलर केस में मल्टीपल रिग्रेशन में नहीं होगा.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Can polynomial regression have sir multiple variables also?
Yes, we can have. I will discuss it in the next session.
सर सेम कॉन्सेप्ट्स डीप लर्निंग में भी होते हैं यही वाले?
Yes, we can apply on this one.
Sir,
Yes.
Sir, you said that in ML all the fields should be independent from each other, sir. But in real world, how would we make sure that one field is independent from other?
Normally, we have all fields independent from each other. But yes, if we have dependence between the fields, then we have to tackle it. But yes, most of the situations, the data should be independent, and most of the algorithm assume that the data should be independent from each other, like naive Bayes algorithm, and assume that the data is independent of each other. Okay, so let's start our quiz. Is logistic regression and polynomial regression the same? No, logistic regression is different, and I will discuss it in their classification. तो मैंने क्विज का लिंक शेयर कर लिया है, you can try this.
जूम पे भी डाल दीजिए सर.
मेरा एक्टिव उस पे नहीं है, मैंने उस पे डाल दिया है.
में कोई प्रॉब्लम आ रही है
सर वी नीड परमिशन
मांग रहा है सर.
ओके जस्ट अ मिनट.
मेरा खुल गया क्विज.
वो थापर वाला किया होगा ना मैंने. एक मिनट रुको, जिसको इश्यू आया है सॉल्व नो इश्यू. यस, जिनको इश्यू आ रहा है दे कैन ट्राई नाउ. ठीक हो गई होगी प्रॉब्लम अब. So I have shared the link for YouTube user also. देखिए, आप क्विज तभी दीजिए if you have attended the class, otherwise please don't do this.
Thank you so
So
much,
I
sir.
request only those participants who have watched the video or the session, please do this quiz.
Thank you so much, sir.
I have
It was a wonderful
approximately
session,
60 watching on Zoom, on YouTube, and we have approximately 136 here. And those who have given the quiz, they can leave the thing, और अगले हफ्ते हम सेम टाइम पे करेंगे. So please join the session. अब हम हर संडे 6 बजे मिलेंगे और अगली बार हम polynomial regression implement करेंगे, and we will also start discussing on classifier. तो अगली बार हम classifier भी शुरू करेंगे. And please share the information of this course with your friends so that maximum can take the benefit of this. और अब हम नया क्लासिफिकेशन शुरू करेंगे अगली बार से. तो जिन्होंने पिछले सेशन नहीं भी लगे हुए उनको कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा, क्योंकि बिल्कुल नए से हम नया कंसेप्ट शुरू करेंगे. सो स्टिल पीपल कैन ज्वाइन दिस कोर्स because we will be starting with classification application which include naive support vector machine, decision tree, artificial neural network, CNN. So ये सब अब हम अगले session में करेंगे. So please share this information with your friends.
Thank you, sir,
Thank
for
you.
such a knowledgeable session. Sir, is it possible to have your email ID or your phone number so that for something like we want to
Just give me a
recommend your
minute.
name? Yeah, just want to recommend your name in our institute for something that we will talk to you by mail or by on phone. Is it possible?
Yeah. You can write to me. You have my email ID.
No, sir, no.
You
Can I have
can.
it, sir?
Yeah, you can note down. I'm sharing on chat box. It is pratik.bhatia@gmail.com.
How much I got today?
And I am also available on WhatsApp. So you can,
Class text. आप ही का चलते तो सोए थे चिप चिप के ऐसे करने लगते हैं ना और पूरा एकदम
Thank you,
चढ़
sir.
जाता है ना
सर आप ये नोट शेयर कर देंगे सर हमारे सर नोट्स और डेटा सर.
yes, I will share.
Okay sir, thank you
I
sir.
will contact you on phone or your Gmail ID for some for some other purposes.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir, for such a knowledgeable session.
Thank you. Yes.
We missed your session, sir.
जिसने क्विज अभी नहीं किया प्लीज जल्दी कर लीजिए because I am going to close this.
Sir, what is the difference between interpolation and regression?
I will tell in the next class जब सारे बच्चे होंगे. Please ask the question in the next class.
So can we leave the class if you have given?
Yeah, of course. जिनका quiz हो गया, you can leave class. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, I have done. Please check my response.
आ गया होगा.
Okay sir. Thank you sir.
God bless you.
Thank you, sir.
God bless you. So, okay.
Sir, there are only 5 questions and it is giving marks out of 10.
Yeah, हर क्वेश्चन 2 नंबर थे ना. हर क्वेश्चन के 2 नंबर है. तो ठीक है, you can leave me. Please pass on the information about this course to your friends so that maximum can join. Bye bye.
So what are the passing marks?
Don't worry about maybe 60 to 80%, 6 or 8. How many you got?
6 only. I missed the last class.
चल कोई नहीं, पास है.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.